Design a Garden is proudly brought to you by Wonder and Effecto.
Welcome to Design a Garden. I'm Andre Bimre. Today we're in the north of Johannesburg at a very newly built home. When I say very new, I mean the finishings are not even done yet, but we are going to be tackling the garden. Now, as with all construction sites, lots of rubble laying around, lots of cement where the guys were mixing, and of course the soil, we don't know how long it's been unattended. So we're going to add some real life back into the soil. And because, we're going to be planting living things. So we're going to bring life in to help these living things really get started. But before we do anything, we need to talk to the homeowner. Tim's already doing that. Come and join us. We're with Rina, whose garden we're going to be doing today. Rina, thanks for having us. You have a beautiful home.
Thank you for being here. It's a great pleasure.
Now, tell us, what would you like the Abacus team to do for you?
Well, we approached Abacus Gardens because we've been living on a large property of 3,000 square meters, very large. And making this transition to a smaller property was a huge problem for us and a challenge. But we did not know how we were going to cope with this. And that's why we actually approached Abacus.
Okay. And of course, the kind of design you're looking at doing, matching the house, of course?
Well, we're trying to stay with a more classical look, yet more semi-formal, seeing that this is a Georgian style home. Yet we also feel that it still needs to meet some of the needs of the family, like relaxation, entertainment, and privacy, which is very important.
Absolutely.
Rina, I mean, I'm so inspired by this architecture of your home. I think it's beautiful, it's airy, it's open, it's quite refreshing, in fact. I was just wondering, are there any particular plants that you really want to include in our design for you?
Oh yes, agapanthus. They are beautiful. They are so obliging because they can grow anywhere. They like the sun, they like the shade, and then the colors are soft. Although I'm not a purple person, I love the mauves. Yes.
Now the home, it's very structured. There's a strong symmetrical line running through the house here. Would you like a very formal garden or very relaxed, or should we try and combine something for you between the formal and the informal?
I think we're going to combine the formal. As I said, it's going to be more semi-formal.
Semi-formal. So some box hedges, some sort of English rambling country style
Yes.
garden. This is so inspirational. This is easy to work with because the architecture already gives us a great framework to do something really unique and creative for your home.
Well, I'm so glad he feels like
Well, our next step will be to go away and do the design and come back to you, and we'll be doing the garden for you in the next couple of days.
Taking note of Rina's suggestions, Tim hands the brief over to his design team, who then run with it. The key to this design would be to marry the Georgian architecture with its surrounding garden.
Tim, Rina's got a beautiful home. What are you going to do to sort this for her?
Well, it is a striking home.
Yeah,
easy architecture, easy to work with for us as landscapers because
Georgian,
it's beautiful.
Right?
It's Georgian, classical Georgian with a bit of a contemporary edge to it. Beautiful home, really it is. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. We've got to keep with the sort of Georgian garden as well. It's not always imperative to do the exact style of the architecture and to duplicate it in the garden. But in this instance, wow, I think a beautiful Georgian styled home will be spectacular, and that's exactly what the Abacus Design Studio has prepared for us.
Okay, now there's a lot of awkward space here. How are you best going to exploit this space?
Well, we have two objectives. Number one, Rina did indicate she came out of a 3,000 square meter home in Northcliffe, and we're moving into a small cluster. So I think we need to create a garden that feels incredibly spacious, and airy. And then the second objective is that we have to maintain interest in that environment. And that's a challenge because, as you can tell, the garden is set very much back against the perimeter wall. So it could be very sort of one-dimensional and boring. So we've got to create interest. And we're doing that in a variety of ways by bringing in very unique pots, water features and the like. So there's a lot of interest in this garden.
Now, how are you going to marry the fact that she wants quite a formal garden, but she also said she wants something with a bit more relaxed to entertain people in and
Absolutely.
meet the family needs, in fact, I think is what she said.
You know, that's a great challenge for us in any design to marry different aspects for a client. But in this instance, what we're doing is we're going to do very strong geometrical straight lines throughout the garden. We've got an axis running through the middle of the home, which divides the house pretty much in two, and the garden likewise. So we're going to make a perfectly symmetrical garden in either direction with box hedges. Now, beyond the box hedges, our planting is going to take a very informal nature. And together, the informal planting and then the strong box hedges are going to create that sense of the formal and informal, and the tension between the two, I think, will create a lot of interest.
Now, talking about planting, that's going to be your next thing, right?
Absolutely.
You're going to arrange the plants to be done.
Well, we've got to prepare the soil, of course, before we get the planting
Absolutely.
done. But that certainly is in our pipeline.
Excellent. So we'll see you on site.
Let's go.
Cool, mate.
When we come back, the gardening team gets down to work and we find out what pleaching is. Welcome back to Design a Garden. Offloading has never been easier as the team places the dozens of plants needed for this garden in an accessible area, ready for the planting.
The Abacus Gardens team has just arrived with the plants, and these are some of my favorite ones. Now, when you're doing a Georgian style garden, it is critical that you include box hedges in your design, and for that reason we've chosen two types of hedges. The first one is the Unimus Emerald Owl. It's a great little hedge. We're going to plant it directly outside the patio, so you're going to walk from the patio and in fact step over it. It's a very slow growing hedge, which of course makes it ideal for that spot. We've also chosen your Duranta Sheena's Gold, beautifully striking with its yellow color in the garden, and it's a little bit faster growing, so it's going to be a medium-sized hedge at the back against the wall. Now, English gardens are also strongly typified by lots of flowers, and for that reason, we've chosen this white cyclamen, which will really stand out in the garden. We've also chosen the New Guinean Passion, beautiful big pink flowers on them. There's a variety of other flowering plants going in as well. We've chosen petunias and pansies because, of course, that's what an English-style garden is all about. It's about flowers and about color.
As in most newly built complexes, this garden has poor soil which needs building up. So loads of compost are a must. Georgian-style gardens are all about structure. This plan calls for clearly marked beds as a border around the lawned area of the garden. At this point, with the rubble now gone, it's time to finish the soil preparations. The rich compost is spread over the planting area and it's smoothed over. Compost improves drainage and moisture absorption, and with the number of trees, hedges and flowering plants in this garden, it needs loads.
All the basic preparations have been done. The team have dug up all the rubble, they've removed it, they've leveled the area, the irrigation's gone in. So now we need to prepare the bed for the plants. Of course, we're adding living things to the soil, so we need to add a bit of life in the soil in form of fertilizer. So the first thing we're going to start with, superphosphates, which looks after the root growth and keeps the plant good and strong and healthy. Then, in this case, we're going to be using two variants of a similar fertilizer, but blended differently. In the first area, which is the lawn area, you see this yellow line kind of divides the lawn area from the bed area. So the lawn area, we're going to use the 713, especially formulated for lawn. Big advantage of this particular fertilizer that it activates the microorganisms in the soil and it's chlorine free. That's a big deal. We've got to remember that. And then, of course, we're going to be adding water retention granules. As you can see, the soil is very poor. So these granules, these polymers, not only will save you up to 50% water, but it also got nutrients in. And all these products are from Wonder. They're available at your local nursery.
With the flower beds well composted, the guys bring in the taller trees. Remember to start planting with the taller structure plants, as these take up more space and require more effort to plant. Tim's design calls for poplar trees, which are deciduous and often used for their ornamental nature, the light-coloured bark and their pleasant scent in spring. It's an easy tree to cultivate, and it grows well in heavy, cold, damp soil.
The Abacus design team is facing quite a unique challenge in this garden because we have 5-meter tall walls to contend with. Now, most of us are used to living in a concrete jungle, but you know, there's a really easy way to soften your walls, and that's by choosing the appropriate trees and shrubs. And in this instance, we've chosen the poplar simini. It's great because it grows really tall. It'll grow much taller than 5 meters, and it's also very narrow, so it's not going to congest the garden. I love the movement that you get in a poplar when the wind is blowing, the breeze, you've got the movement of the leaves, you've also got the twisted willow-type branches. It's a very beautiful tree, and it's great because in this instance, it's going to bring the relaxed, informal look to the garden to contrast the very strict straight lines, the box hedges, and the very formal pleaching that'll go immediately adjacent to it. So we've positioned all the large trees, and now it's time to start planting.
Andre adds Wonder bone meal to the bottom of the hole, ensuring that the root system benefits from the added phosphates. The best way to transplant trees from bags into the ground is to cut away the base of the bag, move the tree into the hole, and remove the bag once the tree is in place. That way you also retain the good soil from the bag in the newly dug hole. The filler plants are next, with the team using hydrangeas against the boundary wall. All of the plants have to be well fertilized, and that's what the team do for the Unimus hedge, which is planted around the patio. This is a slow-growing hedge, and it'll be easy to maintain over time. Its emerald color will ultimately complement the lawn in the garden.
The beds in this area have all been just about planted already. There's 1 or 2 plants which still have to go in, but the durantas have been planted, the magnolia trees have been put in. These durantas will eventually form the hedge. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fertilize this. We've prepared the soil by using lots of compost, loads of bone meal, and of course now we're going to go with an all-purpose fertilizer. And in this case it's an all-purpose 515 from Wonder, very environmentally friendly, free of chlorine. Very simple to use. A little tub like this, can you believe it? Very economical, does up to 100 square meters. Because all you need is about 30 grams per square meter. You broadcast it on the surface and water it in really well. So I'll be doing that.
Wonder all-purpose fertilizer will give these newly planted beauties their much-needed nutrients. With most of the filler plants settled into their new home, the Abacus Gardens team places the striking 18th century style pots in position. These are great decor elements, and the plantings in them will add a needed, less formal look to this otherwise highly structured garden. The pots closer to the house will hold conifers for added height, with a colourful fill of purple and pink petunias around them. The pots near the wall are planted up with bright pink New Guinea impatiens, which adds light and a bit of warmth to this shaded and formal area.
Ornamentation is absolutely critical in the garden, especially hard landscaping. You see, this garden could be almost any style, but as soon as you introduce this beautiful cast iron 18th century style pot, immediately you get a feel of the Georgian era. And that's quite important in a garden. Always include hard landscaping because that adds real character to the style. Now this pot is also great for another reason. The Georgian style is very rigid, it's very formal, and the pot allows for an informal planting throughout the year. So in summer you can plant some annuals, when winter comes you can change it, and that allows the homeowner to interact with a very formal design. I also love the use of this lamium because the lamium brings in the informal character as well into the garden, and it gives you this trailing, cascading effect over the edge of the cast iron pot.
Now, Tim, I don't see any climbing plants, so you must have another idea in mind for this structure here. What exactly is this for?
You know, Andre, it's quite a unique part of the design that the Abacus team chose here. They've decided to use the arts of pleaching.
Okay.
So pleaching
Explain.
it's not commonly used, it's not commonly heard of, but it's when you intertwine the branches of trees
Okay.
to get them to create a box hedge.
I've
So
seen that.
effectively what you're going to see here once this is established is the stems of the tree at the bottom, and at the top it'll look like one plant all the way across into a very formal box hedge.
I was going to say that again, adding to that formal look. Now, I've seen that, but I've never actually seen how it's done. So at what stage do you do that?
Well, at this point, we're positioning them, we're planting them, and then we've put these stakes in with the fishing guts so that the homeowner can see how to intertwine the branches. Because now
Okay.
we've got to wait for the plants to grow to get to the place where they intertwine.
All right, so that would be the bottom, and that gives him a guide where to
Yeah,
go.
about a meter box. Of course, you can choose the size of your box hedge, and it probably will grow bigger and bigger over time as well.
And you're using magnolia for this, which is a beautiful plant.
It's a stunning plant. I really like the choice of plant. It's got this beautiful bronzy velvet leaf underneath. It's got a shiny green top. And then, of course, it gets this huge soup bowl-sized flowers that have quite an exotic smell. So I really like this plant. It's also
think
not
that's gonna
that
be-
common. It's a bit of an old-fashioned plant, been around for a long time, but we
But that
don't
all
use it that
fits in with
frequently.
your design plan, though.
It does, absolutely. So this is the view directly from the patio.
So our next step, well, the garden's almost done, so what's the next step?
We've planted most of the plants, and I hear the lawn has just arrived.
Okay.
It is all seasons evergreen, and that does have to be laid immediately. So I think
Yes,
we should
it
get
does.
on our way with that.
Cool, let's do that.
Laying all seasons evergreen turf adds the finishing touch to this garden, reminiscent of the elegant Georgian period. This lawn grows well in both shade and full sun, and it's really easy to plant. An instant lawn can be planted any time of year, as opposed to seeded lawn, and it's also more effective on sloping terrain. You can also cut strips in the required size and shape to fill in any odd spots around the garden.
I know the Abacus design team chose All Seasons Evergreen as their lawn of choice for the garden. It's really one of my favorite lawns. I love the emerald color. I also like the long length of the lawn that you leave it at. It gives you that sort of meadow effect. You want to run out and just bounce down on it.
Absolutely.
So it's a great lawn because we've got these very tall walls in the garden,
Yep.
which means there's always a bit of shade in the garden. And the All Seasons Evergreen is great, of course, because it does well in sun and in
and certainly
shade.
shade, yeah.
But I'm told you're a lawn expert.
In a previous life?
Can you give us some more advice then?
Well, absolutely. Look, the one big thing about this is, in terms of the maintenance factor, the deeper the shade, the longer the leaf blade of the grass has to be.
Okay.
So the grass has a very upright growth habit
Yeah.
because it's able to survive low light. So it stands up and then it catches the light as it comes in, the little light available.
Okay.
And that's why the deeper the shade, the longer the leaf blade. So for example, this kind of shade where you have half day, you could probably leave it somewhere between 40 and 70 millimeters. I almost said liters, millimeters. And of course, but in full sun, you can bring it right down to about 20 mils.
Okay.
As part of the preparation, as you can see, the guys are putting down the bone meal. So we're going to be fertilizing with 713, which is specially blended for lawns and foliage. Now, this size tub, very economical. 6 kilos, that will do 200 square meters.
So that's a
Now,
fair
that's a
bit,
lot,
eh? Yeah.
absolutely. And of course, this has got all the benefits, the chlorine-free, the humic acids. It helps get the microorganisms going in the soil. It adds life back into the plants. And of course, remembering 713, got quite a high nitrogen content, which is the part for the greening up of the leaves, giving real lush growth to it. And then, of course, the 3 part that's the part that gives you strong cell walls, a strong, healthy plant. Because you're mowing it often, you really
Andre,
need that.
Do we put this on top of the grass after it's been laid, or do we put it on the soil
Well,
underneath?
you can do either, but in this case, we're going to do it on top.
And this can't burn the grass?
only if you don't put enough water on it. Okay. So if you
So
give it
water
enough
well.
water it in well afterwards, no problem at all.
Okay, well, that's good to remember.
There's one more thing you're doing to the edge of the lawn, right?
There's, in fact, we're going to bring in this cobble edge. We're going to put it all along the lawn where it meets the flower bed. It's you can see the beautiful sort of mushroom grey colouring to it, which is excellent for the Georgian style architecture as well.
And of course, it's going to but contrast quite nicely
It
against
is. Look
that
at the
green.
colouring there. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful. The great thing about the cobble edge is the architectural nature that it brings to the garden now.
Yeah.
All the straight lines, all the geometry is being accentuated with the cobble edge. It's also great from a maintenance perspective because the garden knows exactly where to mow the lawn and where to trim the edge, and then you don't have this growth or the enlarging of the flower bed that many people do experience. So yeah, the cobble edge is going in. It's going to look great in the garden.
Well, let me give them the fertilizer.
I'll get on with the cobble edge.
Absolutely.
After the break, a modern take on an 18th century garden is revealed. Welcome back to Design a Garden. With the last sod in place, the vision is complete.
Tim, mark me down as being absolutely thoroughly impressed. Well done, man. This looks great. This garden looks really good. What a transformation.
It looks great. I think that we've managed to capture the essence of the Georgian style really well. The garden now kind of flows really well with the architecture of the home as well. You'll recall that Rena said
That was your brief.
there was a spacious field inside the house. Be sure to maintain it externally as well. And when you feel that fluid stepping off the patio into the garden, I think it just feels really large, the garden.
No, it's wonderful use of the space. Great stuff. Good
You
job.
know, there's also a restfulness in the regularity of the garden. You know, the extreme geometry, the straight lines, the clipped box hedges, all of that together brings a real peace to us. I think especially when you live in the world of chaos and busyness, stepping into this garden gives you just that sense of order. And you know, I
Absolutely.
think we've managed to incorporate the playful side of it as well. So altogether, I think that the family's going to love this.
Really nicely done. Now, you've got one more thing you're going to give to the homeowner?
Yes, we're very excited to tell them that we're going to offer them 3 months worth of free garden maintenance. We're going to make sure that those clip box hedges work out perfectly.
Okay.
We're going to get that pleaching process where the magnolias
least going, yeah.
So yeah, I think we're excited to participate in this garden because it's definitely an ongoing process.
Excellent. Then, of course, Effecto is giving you a basket of products to help you do the maintenance. We're giving you some fertilizer from Wonder, as well as 3 products, Rose Key and some other things. But I want to show you this. You've got 2 ponds in this area as
do.
well. And this product, very nice product, called Pond Clear. It will help keep the green away. And even when you do start with green, and it's a very low dosage, a teaspoon in 500 liters of water. That's all you need.
That's something that's going to last a while.
Absolutely, and you can use it in fish ponds. So
Okay, well, they're
excellent.
great, fish friendly
Well,
too.
yeah, and look, you need to get out of here, don't you?
I do. The homeowners are on their way, so we're going to get going before they arrive.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you on the next job.
Great. Thank you,
Great
Andrea.
stuff, man. I can see how this design or the architecture of the house has really influenced the design of the garden. For example, there's this central axis right through the house, and the house is kind of mirrored on 2 sides. And the garden design has taken its cue from that. So you've got exactly the same design on the one end, mirrored on the other side. And that works really well and enhances the architecture of the house, which is exactly what Rina, the homeowner, wanted. And of course, when we started off with a complete rubble bed. That was cleared out. They brought in the plants in very formal beds. And when the lawn came in, I mean, that absolutely just framed the whole picture, and it looks absolutely stunning. Now, I think this homeowner is going to be really happy with this garden. I can hear her car pulling up. Let's go and call her. Now, Rina, you asked Abacus Garden to design a garden for you that matched the architecture of your home, that was formal but had a slightly relaxed feel about it. Do you think they delivered that?
It's amazing. I'm actually speechless. I cannot.
Is that a good speechless?
It's absolutely beautiful.
Excellent.
I think it's going to enhance the design of this home and enrich our lifestyle.
Absolutely.
It's
Well, let me show you
beautiful.
around. Let me show you some of the plants. You've got this Duranta. These are going to give you that intermediate height. You'll be able to shape them into a little. Of course, you've got this beautiful pot, which is your focal area. Which
Arum lilies,
Yeah,
yes.
which will give you what? Very much so. And of course, you've got these poles, which is the markers to do your pleaching at some point. Rina, now that we've had a chance to look around, what's your favorite part of the garden?
Everything.
Really?
Absolutely every single plant
That's wonderful to hear. Listen, it's been such a pleasure doing your garden.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much for having us.
Thank you. And I'm sure this garden will enhance the design of our home and enrich our lifestyle
I'm sure it will.
and also have lasting impressions.
Absolutely.
Thank you
please
very
enjoy.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye-bye. This was such a lovely garden to work on. And of course, the homeowner's reaction just made us even more proud to have done this garden. So this is all from us today. We'll see you again on another Designer Garden.
Designer Garden was proudly brought to you by Wonder and Effecto.